All right, we are live. I'm very excited to welcome back today's guest. On today's episode, I interview a legendary fitness trainer, physical educator, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pioneer, the first person certified to teach Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in the United States, a multiple-time Joe Rogan Experience guest, and one of my greatest inspirations. It's his mission to teach people how to live their healthiest lives, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. Doing it through health education. And exercise is just a small part of this, but it's a really big part. And we're going to talk about more about that today. So welcome to the Winner Circle, Steve Maxwell. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Derek. I appreciate it a lot. So what's going on? You're in California, yeah?
I'm in Winnipeg, Canada right now.
Right, that's right.
We're actually in our fourth quarantine. We have like the highest COVID numbers in North America, last I heard, and it's been tough.
Wow. Well, you know what? One of the reasons why people might be susceptible is the lack of vitamin D in your region. You just don't get that northern sunlight in that latitude. Yeah. And you might want to look strongly into supplementing your diet with vitamin D, which is absolutely essential for good immune system support.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you about that later on, but we could just get into that now. I was going to ask you about your supplemental regime. You talked a bit about it last time. I just listened to one of your most recent podcast experience, and you talked about how you're taking Lipo C. On the episode we did about a year ago, you're on melatonin and the various other herbal supplements. So yeah, what does your supplement routine look like for you today, Steve?
Well, it hasn't changed a lot. You know, there for the longest time, I wasn't using any supplements when I was traveling as a digital nomad. For your listeners that don't know, after I sold my gym and sold my jiu-jitsu school, I went on the road and was pretty much traveling as a digital nomad for the last 20 years, living literally out of one bag. Now I set up a little tiny house here in Port Townsend, Washington, and I got off just before the big epidemic started, just right about, I guess it was like late February, beginning of March of 2020, just when everything was starting to hit the fan, and just before the shutdowns. So glad I did that. Could you imagine being trapped in a hotel in a foreign land? I think you'd see with no way to really pay your bills, without being able to do it. You get through your life savings pretty quick. And it happened to a couple people. So
definitely
in those days of traveling, I traveled light, literally one bag. I didn't need that much, I don't dress up and wear suits, and I don't need to go any place where you need that. So basically just, 2 pair of pants, 2 shorts, a couple t-shirts, some underwear, I didn't even travel with a gi, just my belt. And I would borrow gis wherever I'd be at. And, other than my iPad and my iPhone, I really, in my chargers, that's all I really needed. And I lived pretty simple, And once I got here to Port Townsend, I was able to accumulate a little bit more stuff than what I was used to. And I bought this really cool little tiny house from Idaho. It's a company in Idaho. It makes really nifty little places. And I've been living in this little tiny home since early 2020. And I started investigating all of the supplements that could help a person with health and vigor. And it's not just a matter of just being healthy. I want to be, beyond health. So, I told you about the D3 being very, very important. And the liposomal C, which is a revolutionary type of vitamin C, it's fat soluble, as opposed to most water-soluble vitamin C. And I take baking soda every morning.
Okay.
I read about it in the Oxygen Advantage. It helps your breathing and oxygenation, helps your body produce nitric oxide, which helps oxygen get into your cells a little bit more efficiently. And I started taking a form of kombucha, this Alive. In fact, I'll show it to you. It's right in my little fridge. I love this tea. It's an adaptogenic tea. This company, I get no money for it. I just love it. Great for gut health, and it has all sorts of good stuff in here. has reishi and chaga and turkey tail and yerba mate. Really good way to keep your gut filled with probiotics.
Mm-hmm.
I've been using magnesium oil because most people in the North American continent, most around the world, really don't have good magnesium levels. The soil is depleted, and as you know, magnesium is one of the primary ingredients in your body making testosterone. So, you hear about people going to testosterone replacement, like guys my age, or even younger. I mean, I'm 68, and I hear guys even in their 40s complaining about this. But the magnesium oil is absorbed through the skin. So, it's almost impossible to get too much when you take things through the skin. And you get tremendous changes in your T levels and just feel better. And then I started taking a lot of, I'm not a vegetarian. I have been a vegetarian, but I've looked at the vegan and vegetarian information, and I decided it wasn't for me. There's just not enough info to support it as increasing lifespan or longevity. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a total carnivore or anything like that, but I don't see anything wrong with eating meat and meat products. So I started taking organ meats.
Mm-hmm.
And the company, I'll show it to you. This company right here, Ancestral Supplement, good stuff.
Okay.
And this one is the thymus and bone marrow. And I take desiccated liver mixed with kelp, dried liver, and bull testicles ground up, and and thymus. I mean, people have been eating this for a millennium.
Yeah.
They recommend that eating certain organs from the animals would transfer and make the help make the body healthier. So I've been taking the animal organ meats in supplementary form. Now, some of them I take as dried powders, and some in capsules. And have a little, so I'm taking heart, liver, spleen, bone marrow, thymus, prostate, testicles, and the important thing for athletes is the desiccated liver. That's been around since I was a kid in the 60s. They recognize that taking dried desiccated liver has a tremendous impact on your endurance levels.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
they were giving it. They were giving it to rats in rat studies, and they had the rats on normal rat diets. But the one group of rats was getting desiccated liver supplementation, and they swam the rats, endurance swim. They put them in like little containers where they can't climb out. And the first group of rats all exhausted themselves within 2.5, 3 hours. And the desiccated liver rats were still going strong after 8 hours. They had to actually end the experiment.
wow, that's very interesting. I have to look into that, Steve. So
Yeah.
what's the difference between like the powdered form or the whole form of like liver and that organ meat? So you're doing
It's
it in the
hard,
powder.
hard to get fresh meat.
Okay.
You should have it fresh. So they take
Mhm.
this and they freeze dry it, and they make it in such a way that it preserves all the nutrients. But if you're to buy at the butchers or whatever, it's hard to get, and you have to cook it just right. And this company does it all ready for you.
Mhm. So out of all
And
those
I don't know
supplements,
about you, but filling your refrigerator with heart and lungs and kidneys and thymus, and a lot of times you can't even get that stuff anyway.
yeah,
Where are you going to get
that's
bull testicles? Where are you going to get bull testicles?
I don't know, not here in Canada. Maybe
Yeah,
down
right.
maybe in Texas.
Yeah, no, in Missouri, there's a place that they sell grass-fed animals, and you want
Okay.
grass-fed organic animals. You don't want the toxic corn or grain-fed cattle like you just get
Mhm.
in normal grocery stores. I agree with people that are anti-meat. That kind of meat is not very good for you. The cattle that are given pesticides and
Yeah.
eat, grains full of herbicides and artificial fertilizers and the food and the grains that they eat. You want grass-fed animals that are free roaming.
No, I agree. And I try to stick with game meat or grass fed, but that is not always an option for many. One thing that I've been supplementing is eating seafood, wild caught, sockeye salmon, in particular, anchovies. But I just watched a documentary on Netflix called Seaspiracy, and there's a lot of controversy in terms of the fishing industry. So what's your views on eating like fish? Do you eat much fish?
I don't, and it's just a personal, I don't like it.
Okay.
Even though I live in Port Townsend, Washington State, which is just right across the border from Canada.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by water on three sides of where I live. I just don't like seafood,
Yeah.
I never did. So it was never much of a choice for me because I don't like it. However, I have read the sea is polluted, and I've read about the mercury poisoning and this and that. And of course, farm fish isn't any better than grain-fed beef.
True.
And I think if your only choice is like, commercial animals, chicken and beef and, bison or whatever, and farmed fish, you would be better off possibly being a vegetarian.
I feel the same way.
But I can get this good stuff, and luckily the one of the shops around here actually carries wild game. You can buy a rabbit, you can buy deer, you can get moose, you can get elk, you can get that stuff. And I can get fresh fish. I will have shrimp and scallops once in a while as a little treat. But that's about as far as it goes. I don't really usually eat fish. I don't.
So
but,
it's interesting.
I feel for you. But you are pretty far inland in Winnipeg.
Right in the middle.
You would be better off getting fresh trout.
Yeah. It's a good suggestion.
If you could fish local, catch the trout. Up in Canada, it's supposed to be outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I was surprised to hear you talk about mushrooms, taking reishi, chaga, and turkey tail. Over the last year, I've been really big on that. And you mentioned desiccated liver being really good for athletes and endurance. I found cordyceps mushrooms being really great for my endurance.
Another great product.
Brain energy.
Yes, and lion's mane, yerba mate again. Elithro, which is the North American version of ginseng. See what the heck is in here. They got some other mushrooms in here too. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah, I've been really benefiting from mushrooms like reishi. I've been taking at night and helping really good with my sleep. I've been taking the turkey tail, the chaga, and a whole wide blend. I use Real Mushrooms. It's a company based out of BC, and I'm just really impressed with their stuff. So what role does mushrooms play?
I have to check this out. Real Mushrooms? Let me write it down.
Real Mushrooms. Yeah, Real Mushrooms.
Yeah, see, that's why these things are always good. You can always pick up new ideas from anyone. Real Mushrooms.
Yeah. So your nutrition, what you like to do is you try not to overeat, not to overload the body with crowded digestion. You have a very simplified meal plan, generally based 3 meals a day. You have a fruit-based meal when fruit is in season. You have a protein-based meal. Generally, you eat that with a large vegetable salad, and a carbohydrate, starch-rich meal, often coupled with vegetables. So from the research I've done, that seems to be the way you found nutrition works for you. And often you sometimes only eat 2 meals a day. So let's get more into that. Let's break those all down. So for the fruit-based meals, what are your favorite fruit you like to eat as part of that fruit-based meal?
Anything in season. Berries I'm particularly fond of. I love blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. You gotta be careful with the farm strawberries because they're one of the most pesticide laden fruit. Anything like cherries, apples, peaches, pears, plums. Remember the big acai craze?
Yeah.
The Brazilian fruit. It's like A with a funny little C, AI. It's pronounced S-E in Portuguese.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a superfood. Well, the good old-fashioned North American plum has just the same nutrient profile. So get your plums when they're in season. But during the winter, I don't eat much fruit because it wouldn't be in season. And, I don't, it doesn't make sense for me living in a far northern climate, right? We're not that far from the Arctic Circle, actually, and, already summer's almost like it's so light. Even at 10 o'clock, the sun's not down yet. It doesn't make sense for me to be eating pineapple and bananas and papayas.
No.
And it doesn't make sense to be eating fresh fruit in the wintertime, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's never been part of man's natural diet. And like you said, I have a simplified meal plan to maximize my digestion. Not for any other reason. Some young guys like yourself might be able to mix a little bit more food and get away with it because your powers of digestion are stronger. But, as I get, I'm just a year and a half away from 70 years old, and I find my powers of digestion are beginning to wane. And excuse me, pollen season. I find that when my immune system is high, I'm not bothered too much by the allergens, but this year it's got me a little bit more than usual, which indicates some kind of hole in my regimen. I got to figure out like how to bolster my immunity a little bit against some of these allergens and so forth. And lately, I've just been doing 2 meals a day pretty much. I'll have my chief meal around noon or 1 o'clock, somewhere in between that time. And today it was like a beef stew.
Yep.
But without potatoes. She used parsnips, some carrots, and a couple other onions and all sorts of delicious stuff. And then a large raw vegetable salad. And in it, I used a little kimchi and a little sauerkraut, to get some of that good stuff in there. And some steamed asparagus. That was lunch.
Okay.
Tonight, I'll probably have either chia seed pudding or I'll have quinoa, which I love. I love quinoa. I'll have that. Sometimes I'll have a cashew ice cream. I can do it because I'm light in my calories today. I like this one brand of cashew ice cream. The whole container is about 550 calories.
Oh, that's great. I'm sure it's delicious.
Yeah, it's not. Occasionally, like maybe I'll have a little fresh fruit, and because fruit digests so fast, when you eat first, you don't want fruit as a dessert. You get really bad gas and fermentation when you eat fruit at the end because the fats and the proteins slow down the digestion of the fruit. So fruit should be either left alone or eaten early in the meal and then wait for 30 minutes before you eat the rest of your meal. Give it a head start to get through there and get digested. So with that ice cream tonight, I may have a little fruit. Berries are just starting to come in here in Port Townsend. We're getting a lot of nice berries.
So you eat fruit in the morning, but you also eat fruit in the night. At the night, it really depends.
Yeah, a little bit of fruit. Then I'll have maybe that cashew ice cream as a little treat. I'll do that every 3rd to 5th day. Little treat, There's nothing wrong with treating yourself. You can eat damn most anything as long as you don't eat it in excess. I mean, if I sat there and gobbled a pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, I'm not going to feel so good in the morning, I'm probably going to be pretty bloated and, I don't need all those extra, all that fat and sugar calories. But I'll eat a vegan ice cream, real light on the calories. And the sweetener is stevia. In fact, I don't know what, tell the truth, this is a new brand I just started using. So this is it. This cashew.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely delicious. They're just using regular sugar. A little starch. No big deal. As long as you're not making sugar like the main part of your meal.
Yeah. So what role does nuts play in your diet? Like, do you eat nuts
Uh,
outside of that, out of that ice cream?
Maybe just like when I have my quinoa, I might put a
Yeah.
couple pine nuts on there for
Okay.
taste, or sometimes I'll have like 6 walnuts.
Okay.
You got to be real careful with the nuts. They're very, very high in calories. They're real
Mm-hmm.
fat, and you can gain weight really quick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you gotta be really careful with nuts. If you're overweight, you want to eliminate nuts. You really
Mm-hmm.
do. You know. See, by the time a person's fully grown, about 30 years old, 34 or 5, your day for building is done. Your growth is finished. You don't
Yeah.
need the building blocks. What you do is need to maintain what you've built. So these admonitions to like gouge yourself with protein to get bigger and hypertrophy and strong, it really takes a toll on your health, digesting all that. It's very hard, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I find that at this stage of the game, I've built what I've built. I'm trying to maintain what I've built. And you can have a little bit of levity and a little bit of fun with your diet now and again, hence the ice cream. I'm not telling people to, that you just have to walk the straight and narrow line all the time. But you got to make room in your diet to include these kind of foods. If you're obese, you have no business eating nuts and peanut butter and ice creams and desserts and starches. You need to get the weight off. You
Yeah.
know, same thing if you're overweight, because you can get fat really quick on this stuff, really fast. And
Mm-hmm.
people been fat and lose the weight, they can gain it back in less than a week. They can put it back on.
Yeah.
I've seen
Uh,
I've seen people lose up to 50 pounds and put half of it back on within 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I heard you say. Most of your clients are coming to you for fat loss, weight
A
loss.
lot
That's
of
like,
not all. I have a lot of young jiu-jitsu guys that want to just train sanely and be able to maintain the sport well into advanced age.
yeah.
So that's another group of people I work with. So it's not always fat loss. I get all walks of life. Some guys are coming to me injured and hurt from
Yeah.
doing silly training styles, ex-CrossFitters, ex-kettlebell swingers. They come to me with their backs and shoulders and elbows and knees all messed up. So I put them on a more sane approach.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned your protein meal today is going to be a stew. What are some of the other proteins that you like to eat that are generally part of your diet based on those
But
protein-based meals? So stew, what else? What
well,
are some other
lamb. I love lamb
lamb? Yeah.
in a form of stew or chops. Lamb is one of the most digestible foods there is on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It literally just melts in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I like turkey and chicken.
Mm-hmm.
I like bison. I like venison. I can get that. I'll have shrimp or sometimes scallops as a little treat. Maybe once every 10 days I'll have that. Just,
Yeah.
for a change of pace.
And for
But
your,
usually some type of fowl or some type of four-legged animal.
mm-hmm. And for your carbohydrate meal today, it's going to be some quinoa. You love quinoa. Some
I love
chia seed pudding. What are some other carbohydrates that you recommend?
to tell the truth, I don't vary my diet a whole lot in that respect.
Yeah.
Occasionally I like sweet potatoes, yams,
Mm-hmm.
baked,
Mm-hmm.
which can be
Mm-hmm.
like a little dessert, a little taste treat in itself, a good root. And if I start to feel like I'm putting on extra weight, the first thing to go is the starches, just because they're easiest to cut out.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of weight loss, what part is nutrition and what part is exercise? Is it mostly nutrition, you'd say? And
Probably
then secondary?
95% nutrition.
Yeah.
You just have to form a calorie deficit. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what the diet is, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I like to have long gaps between meals of at least 5 hours to let my digestive system do its work and to rest.
Yeah.
Constantly eating, like some diets call for, it does work to an extent for weight loss. It keeps people from being hungry, but unfortunately, their digestive system is in a continuous state of working.
Yeah.
And overtaxes the digestive system. Let me be very careful to let your listeners know I am not a
Okay.
nutritionist, nor am
Yeah.
I, I'm just a guy that has successfully been aging well.
Very well.
At 68 years old, I still get in the mat and I can rumble with those young boys. And I'm probably the oldest guy in every room I ever go to. I have met a couple guys older, but it's very rare. And most of the guys that I have met that are a little bit older started jiu-jitsu when they're already in the late 50s or 60s.
And that's what
I started as a 12-year-old boy with wrestling and then, some judo and jiu-jitsu. I don't know anyone that's lasted as long as I have, other than Jorge and Gracie and, House and Gracie and Master Elliot Gracie.
Yeah.
They last.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I'm so excited to talk to you about jiu-jitsu today on today's episode as well. I wanted to talk about nutrition. And then the next topic, we got a little sneak peek. We got like a little inside look at your nutrition. Now we could get into jiu-jitsu. We didn't have much time to talk about that last time. And I don't know if I know you were one of the original investors in the original UFC, which I bet you wish you would have held on to. But I don't know if you still watch UFC, but at the last pay-per-view, UFC 262, Charles Oliveira won the 155-pound title. And he is a jiu-jitsu specialist. He has the most submissions in UFC history at 14, and he has the most finishes in UFC history at 17. So did you watch that? And do you still watch current UFC?
No, I haven't, but now you're making me wish I would have. I really hated what happened with the UFC. The original idea of the UFC was to showcase jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Florian's idea was, hey, what would happen if we took all these different martial arts styles and we threw them all together in a cage? Who would come out on top? And he was betting on jiu-jitsu. And in order to make his point, he picked the least athletic member of the whole family, Royce. And Royce's technique and skill was incredible. He grew up in the mats, but he was not a physical specimen. He was like an average guy. And as Royce used to say, if I could do it, anybody could do it. But he wasn't strong. He wasn't a powerhouse. He didn't have those amazing G-Wiz muscles, And he was flexible and he had great endurance, but his technique was just off the hook, as far as combat style jiu-jitsu. I'm not even talking about point fighting jiu-jitsu. There's plenty of Brazilian guys that could have outpointed him or maybe even submitted him. But I'm talking about when it came, to combat style jiu-jitsu, his technique was amazing. It was the exact jiu-jitsu of Elio Gracie, and Royce was very close to Elio in the fact that he was small and weak and not strong. And he went in there against monsters. And, all you have to do is watch, UFC 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you'll get a chance to see a guy showcase the power of jiu-jitsu and what happens to someone when they don't know jiu-jitsu. And for your listeners out there, it wasn't like it is now. There were no rounds. That you could do anything. You could rapid punch behind the head. You could hammer fist. You could elbow a guy on the ground. You could headbutt. You could punch in the testicles. You could grab hair. The only thing they agreed not to do was bite each other. And they agreed not to poke each other in the eye. But testicles were fair game. And you always hear people that are anti-jiu-jitsu say, I could hit you in the balls or grip. No, you couldn't. If anyone's going to hit in the balls, it's the jiu-jitsu man who's going to hit you because he knows how to angle himself and position himself in a way that makes it really hard. So anyway, that was history. Everyone says, holy, what is going on here? Who is this skinny, young, handsome Brazilian guy that's kicking everyone's butt? And that started the whole evolution, like an explosion, a revolution, not evolution. And everyone wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. What is this? And then the rules started changing. some of the stuff was pretty brutal. I mean, there was people getting stomped on the ground. It was brutal, and
Mhm.
I do understand people's concern. Senator McCain was absolutely lobbying against these type of fights. Of
Yep.
course, he had vested interest. A lot of people don't know that he was in the pocket of the boxing commission.
Mhm.
They had him. So the boxing guys were seeing their profits going out the window. Because I mean, who would want to watch boxing anymore with this new spectacle, this new fighting spectacle? Boxing seems pretty tame and boring. And because you had all the punches and kicks of kickboxing and boxing, and then you had the wrestling on the feet and the throws of judo, and then you had this whole new game on the ground. It was like a very exciting time. And in those days, the UFC wasn't just one fight and not fight again for 6 months or a year. Hoist fought 3 or 4 times in one night. It was done in tournament fashion. He dispatched 4 guys in one night. The power of jiu-jitsu. Who else could have done that?
Mhm.
So it
So
was interesting.
yeah, definitely. Like jiu-jitsu has evolved a long way in MMA since the early days of Hoist, Gracie. What do you think is in store for the future of jiu-jitsu and MMA?
Well, once they put the rules in there with the gloves and the time limits and standing people back up, and they took out the most effective techniques of jiu-jitsu self-defense is what Hoist used. For example, you can't up kick from the ground
Mhm.
when a guy's on his knee.
No.
Or yeah, that was a very powerful jiu-jitsu maneuver because a jiu-jitsu man can maneuver himself quite easily into an up kick position,
Yeah.
but not allowed to use it. But that would have resulted in a lot of knockouts. So my point is, for that guy, what was the guy's name
Charles Oliveira.
well, for him to be able to use jiu-jitsu so well under
Yeah.
such limited rules, my hat's off to the guy. He must be an amazing jiu-jitsu man for him to be able to do that.
Yeah, he's a real phenom. He's been in the
Yeah.
UFC for a long time now.
Even Damian Maia, as great as he is in jiu-jitsu, had a little struggle. I mean, his submissions were wonderful. And
Mhm.
then you have the who's the girl from Phoenix, Arizona, that just had the baby, a real pretty young woman, Megaton Diaz's daughter.
Oh,
McKenzie
I'm
Dern.
not. Yeah. She's doing great in the UFC too.
She's another submitter.
Yeah.
So you
There's
do
also
have some. Even Kron Gracie wasn't able to take his jiu-jitsu to the UFC
Mhm.
because the rule sets and such. His
Mhm.
weakness was the takedowns. He
Mhm.
didn't have really good wrestling takedowns like his father did.
Mhm. There's
So
a really
it limited him. So
Mhm.
I may start watching this Oliveira guy. I'll look at all his past fights.
Oh, you'll like it. He's a very exciting fighter and
Yeah,
an
I kind
excellent
of always
jiu-jitsu player.
I root for the wrestlers, and I was a NCAA Division I wrestler myself
Yeah.
in college, and so I have a high respect for the wrestlers and all of the grapplers, and of course I always root for a grappler.
Yeah, you'll have to check out that his fight at UFC 262 is actually against a wrestler, all-American wrestler, Michael Chandler. So a wrestler versus a grappler is one of those
Yeah,
classic fights, and
it's
it was a good one.
against a jiu-jitsu man, you mean?
What's that? Yeah, it was a
A wrestler
wrestler
jiu-jitsu,
versus a jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
yeah. It's hard in wrestling if you don't know jiu-jitsu, and I don't know how much Chandler knows, but I'm sure he's a formidable grappler, and you certainly wouldn't want the guy grounding and pounding you. But there's a lot of
No.
tricks in jiu-jitsu that when you first start you can fall into. So I'm sure that his jiu-jitsu will get better as a result of that, and he'll probably come back because wrestlers pick up jiu-jitsu really fast, man.
Oh yeah.
At least they quickly learn what not to do.
Yeah. And anti-jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and anti-jiu-jitsu.
So there's another jiu-jitsu practitioner that's having success in the UFC. His name's Ryan Hall, and he's an expert leg locker. And leg locks have become increasingly popular in sport jiu-jitsu Do you see leg locks becoming popular and more successful in MMA? And what do you think about leg locks in general?
Well, you see, one of the things you're not allowed to do is kick people from the ground. So if you get in a leg lock, you can kick people in the head in a real fight. Axe kicks, face, which is forbidden. So that means your only option is to try to escape. And a guy like Ron Paul or who's the other guy? Who's the? I'm trying to think of the other guy that's so good with the leg locks, heel hooks. He fights from from his back a lot. Well, it escapes me.
It escapes me too.
He likes to be mounted, and he'll escape into a heel hook. Does that help?
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
No. He's MMA or is he sport jiu-jitsu?
He fought in one. He fought in one of the in the Metamours. He beat my son Zach. He caught him in a heel hook.
Yeah, it doesn't come.
Zach
doesn't come to mind.
The guy's a phenom with the leg locks also.
I'll search that up.
Yeah. Anyway, my son also beat Ryan Hall, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in the Worlds.
Wow. Well, that's a phenom. Is your son still doing jiu-jitsu or he took a break?
No, he kind of a little burnout. I pushed him a little bit too hard too early. And, he's an artist. So he just, you can't make any money being a competitive grappler. And he didn't want to get the brain damage by going to MMA. You're going to see a lot of fighter dementia as time passes. So.
No, that makes sense. So what would you say is the ideal strength training regime for a BJJ practitioner, Steve?
Isometrics, without a doubt. I've had more success training young men with isometrics, both yielding and overcoming isometrics. Yeah. And even just using your own body weight. What amazing the things that research have uncovered, The amount of weight or even the number of repetitions, the amount of mechanical work just isn't that important. What's important, the intensity of effort and time under load. And I have a lot of grapplers on once weekly strength training programs to supplement their jiu-jitsu training. And you do not need to go out and run hill sprints or wind sprints or airdyne sprints or skip rope or do sandbags or box jumps or swing kettlebells. People do that under the mistaken notion that you're recruiting fast twitch muscle fiber. That's not true. It is not. And there's a lot of guys doing that type of work and very successful. But my point is, just because someone has had success doing a particular type of training does not mean they wouldn't have even better success with safer results, with less training time involved by doing something else. And for me, one of the things that everyone's talking about hypertrophy or strength, and in some cases endurance. But you don't have to have a separate program for both endurance and strength. You can get both the same. And one type of endurance is basically a skill. And, running endurance does not translate well to the mat. There's a little cross transference, but not really. A lot of things like skipping rope and stuff I did all my life, but to tell you the God's honest truth, it just doesn't really translate that well. The best way to get in shape for jiu-jitsu is get out there and wrestle 5 or 6 matches. A couple of weeks. You can't beat yourself up with wrestling hard every day, but certainly 2 or 3 days a week, you got to get in there and wrestle the toughest guys in the room, and you got to go hard. There's like shark bait drills, perhaps what that. Where they'll alternate 3 guys on you, and different guys take turns being alternated. One of my favorites was where they do first points, where everyone lines up against the wall. They'll take the top 4 students, and people just keep coming in, and whoever gets the first points stays. Yeah. And if you're there more than a minute and no one gets a point, both go back in line and pull someone else up. That's one of the most exhausting drills. 10 minutes of that is just excruciatingly hard. That's the type of drills people need to be doing to get specifically conditioned for BJJ. Yep. So your wind sprints and your running and all that stuff, it's just not necessary. And your strength training should be safe within the constraints of the way your joints are made to move.
Mm-hmm.
Safely loading. And I really favor slow, high tension reps. It's not that fast reps don't work. Of course they work. But especially as you get older, especially for anybody over 40, you want to slow that down. Slow, high tension reps. And
body weight?
It could be body weight, barbells, dumbbells. It could be machines.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with machines. You can get very good workout using hammer strength machines, MedX, Nautilus Nitro. There's any number of well-designed equipment out there that would allow you to get very, very strong. And this idea of, functional training, like flipping a tire or hitting a tire with a sledgehammer or doing jumping burpees, that's a very inefficient way to load your muscle. Very inefficient. It's hard work, but once again, the work is very specific to the activity, and it has very poor translation to anything else.
Mm-hmm,
Now, some people may be protesting, saying, yeah, well, I did this and, it really helped me. Yes, but that doesn't mean that what I'm talking about would not have helped you even more safer. And you'll find that once you, get in your 40s, get towards 50s, a lot of the things that you did when you're young, you produce a lot of micro trauma in your body. A lot of little insults that you don't feel, but it's accumulator. It's like smoking. I've known guys that smoked for 30 years. They seem fine. And then one day they come back and they're diagnosed with lung cancer or emphysema. But it seemed like they were just fine. It's the same thing with the micro traumas and the insults to your body from this type of fast explosive weight training. Over time, it builds. And before you know it, you're having a hell of a time getting out of bed. Jiu-jitsu is hard enough on your body. It is.
Yeah.
Why add the trauma of stupid weight training? And I've been guilty of stupid weight training. But I'm here to tell you, hopefully someone will listen to me. Don't do it. You can get just as strong, not even moving a muscle, through isometrics and or high tension training. I prefer body weight because I'm an equipment minimalist. And I don't like the gym anyway.
One of the tools you used to love, it's on your logo here, that you no longer love, is kettlebells, and you don't really recommend them anymore. Are there any safe moves to do with kettlebells?
Well, sure. You could use them for slow, high tension movements, like deadlifts and front squats, presses, rows, anything you
That's
do
what I was thinking.
With a dumbbell, you could use the kettlebell for.
Yeah,
the
that's what I was
thinking.
Is
use jumps between weights. So it's hard to progress. Very hard to progress.
Another tool that you used to really love and no longer were club bells. Are there still a benefit of using a lighter club bell, like a 2-pound wooden club or a 5-pound club, for mobility based drills? Or
five pounds, you're getting it's getting pretty dangerous.
Okay.
Any swinging of weighted implements like that. You can get the same benefits just from doing regular joint mobility with just your hands, with no weight. But like clubbell swinging, it can be okay. But who has time for that? Name a jiu-jitsu guy that needs to do one more thing in his life. Jiu-jitsu is all encompassing, But think of it this way. Think of the word tennis elbow. They're swinging a tennis racket, for goodness sake. And they get terrible wrist, elbow, shoulder injuries from a tennis racket. How about golfer's elbow or golfer's shoulder or golfer's back? They're just swinging a club. But it's the velocity, It's a fast movement with a weighted implement that can cause that micro trauma and that stress we're talking about. So if a golfer or a tennis player can get overuse injuries, what do you think is going to happen when you start swinging these clubs and things like that? It's just something to think about. The risk to benefit ratio isn't there for me.
No, I hear you. So you mentioned you're one of the oldest ones on all the mats. So what were the keys to your longevity in BJJ? How have you stayed with it? Because jiu-jitsu is a sport where you see people come and you see a lot of people go, especially if when they get older.
Tap early, tap often.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let your ego get in the way. I don't care if it's the whitest white belt. I'm going to tap that guy the second I start to feel the joint trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, don't fight out of submissions. That's where most injuries happen. If you're caught in an arm lock or an Americana, you already made the mistake. Fighting out of it is not necessarily a skill, you know. It just means the guy doesn't know how to put it on. Believe me, if I was in the same position with Hoist or Hickson, you know, or somebody, I'd be tapping. Because so I figure if some blue belt catches me in an arm lock, good for him. I made a mistake. I left it go too far. I'm going to acknowledge my mistake and tap, trying to fight out of it because I don't want to tap to a lower belt. That's huge ego, man. Get rid of that. Get rid of the ego and realize that size and strength matter. Size, strength, and youth overcome a lot of technique. So for an old black belt like me, a strong blue belt who's like 30 years, 40 years younger than me, that's almost like fighting a black belt. Maybe not technique, but every other attribute. You know, the Gracies came up with the Boyd belt system based on one of their instructors who was very upset that he got tapped by a blue belt. The guy was like 52-year-old black belt, got tapped by a blue belt. And when they analyzed it, you know, the blue belt that caught him was like 30 years younger, like 20 pounds heavier. Of course, if you make even a little mistake, or even if you don't make a mistake, the guy's athleticism might be enough just to get you anyway. So for every 10 years and every 20 pounds, it's like the guy has a belt. So if you go into class tomorrow, what's your rank right now?
I'm a brown belt.
Okay, so if you go into class tomorrow and there's a guy, and how old are you?
37.
Okay, so let's say there's a 20-year-old, 17 years younger, right? And maybe 20 pounds heavier. That and he's wearing a blue belt. That's like you're fighting a black belt, man. You give a belt for every 20 pounds and every 10 years. The guy would be like, you know, blue, purple, brown, black.
Yeah.
So you got to keep that in mind, you know, like when you're training, and not to let your ego get in the way.
Yeah. Tap early, tap often.
Yeah. Well, you're a brown belt now, so you probably have a little bit more power in selecting your partners. Pick the guys you know that are gentle and use the technique. Don't go with power dudes or crazy guys.
That's what I was going to ask you. So, like, how do you deal with those herky-jerky, like, spazzes? You just say, like, I'm just not going to go with you. There's just no benefit on me going with a spaz, blue belt.
I refuse. I say, I'm going to sit this one out.
Yeah.
You know, like, for example, I went to Maui Jiu-Jitsu. It's run by Hickson's first black belt, Limon. Luis Heredia. Awesome guy. One of the best guys in the world. Actually, he's really fun to spar with because, you know, even though he's a lot younger than me, he's still up there and he understands. So he was great for sparring. And some of the guys would get it. I wasn't looking for guys just to roll over, you know, but, you know, some of the guys were very, you know, they showed a lot of deference to my age and they would play a nice strategic game. You know, now and again, they would, you know, put one on the old man, but they'd do it in a really slick, technical way without using a lot of power. But then there were some guys, even some black belts, that just couldn't not use power. As soon as you'd start to counter them and to match them skill-wise, they would start to up the ante and they would go into their athleticism and their power.
Yeah.
Their egos didn't like the fact that this old guy was hanging with them.
Yeah.
And I quickly learned to avoid them.
Okay. So that's the advice for dealing with those, is just not pass. I just do not need to go with you.
Yeah. But, you know, if you're not the head instructor, you may not have a choice. You know, for the blue belts, you know, let's say older blue belts starting out there that waited till they're in their 40s, 50s, whatever, 60s.
Yeah.
You kind of at the mercy of the teacher, but you should definitely talk to your instructor and have a talk with them. Say, look, I'm in this for fun and health and recreation. I'm not in it for medals or competitions. I just want to have fun. I don't want to get hurt. So please, help me select my my training partners.
Yeah.
Pair me up with guys won't destroy me.
Yeah. And in particular, leg locks. Leg locks, I was saying, are becoming more and more popular. And maybe it was Sean Roberts was the guy Zach fought in Metamorphosis. I don't know if that was the one you're talking about.
No, it wasn't Sean Roberts. It was Gary Tonin.
Oh, Gary Tonin. Okay. So how do you train leg lock safely? Because that's something that worries me. Like, I don't want to get my ankle wrenched or my knee wrenched. How do you train leg lock safely in the jiu-jitsu world today, where more and more people are chasing after leg submissions, because that's kind of like the thing right now?
I train them when I like them, and I'm not actually that bad at it. For old guys like me, sometimes it's easier to go for ankle and foot locks than it is to pass the guard. That used to be one of the reasons why a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys didn't like those things, because they said it makes you lazy in passing the guard. But for me, I'll say to my partner, look, let's train them, but if you get me in it, consider me tapped.
Yeah.
If you get me in it, I acknowledge I screwed up. And I'll just tap.
So it comes back to picking.
I'm not gonna let some 20-year-old get a heel hook and then try to roll and twist and unwrap it. Forget that. Now, I will practice the defenses slow-mo just because I want to know them. But in truth, if I'm rolling with someone and I let them get to my legs, I figure I screwed up.
Yeah.
So, okay, you got me. Good job. A straight foot lock, I'll fight that.
Yeah.
I have very flexible ankles and feet, and I can get out of if a heel hook, I won't even bother. I'll tap immediately. A straight leg lock, I'll usually tap immediately. It depends on the angle, but usually I have an agreement. Look, let's see if we can get each other in the leg lock, but I'm not going. Just consider me tapped.
Yeah, avoid if you got in that place that something went wrong, and try to figure out what got you caught in that ankle lock or that leg lock. And again, selecting smart partners. And thankfully, I have some great partners to roll with. My brother being one of them, who's like a high level black belt, and which is where I want to be. So as a brown belt myself right now, what would you say? What should I focus on to get to that next level as a brown belt? How do you get to that next level?
Well, are you talking about competition? Are you talking about self-defense? Are you talking about the tournament game?
Self-defense and just knowledge and the martial arts spirit are my priorities.
Buy Grandmaster Elliot Gracie's book and learn every single thing in there.
Helio Gracie?
Yeah, Master Text of Jiu-Jitsu.
Master Text of Jiu-Jitsu.
And master every single one of those.
Okay.
And then go down to the Gracie Academy and take a couple classes with Henner and Hiron. Or even enroll in the combatives program.
Yeah, they have
learn how to defend yourself in the street.
They have an online program. What do you think about learning jiu-jitsu online in this new world?
I used to have a very poor opinion of it until I went to Tahiti. And I met a guy by the name of Joel. And Joel was a prison guard at the local prison. And he had been training on videotape from the Gracie Academy for 3 years. And he had a little group of guys that they trained with. And what do they call those? Foray. A foray. It's like a thatched structure with open walls. And they put mats inside it. It was so cool, man. It was so Tahitian. And the ocean was right there, And, I just happened to be crossing a ferry from Tahiti to Moorea, and I happened to see this guy with a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu t-shirt, and I immediately struck up a conversation with him. And
Yeah.
his English was just so it was a little trouble communicating, but his girlfriend spoke good English. So when she came, we had a good talk. So he was really excited to hear that I was a black belt. So I went on over there to his place, and like 15 guys showed up. These huge Tahitian guys, man. And I was a lot younger then, so I could still handle myself pretty good. Thank God. And with the jiu-jitsu I knew, I could hang with the big dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do it now, but you have to understand this was like, oh my God, 15, 16 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
I could still hang with the guys. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so impressed with this guy's ability. I couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And he never had a teacher. He just self-trained from videos. And they just would drill him and practice. I gave him a blue belt on the spot. He was certainly no white belt. And shockingly, even though he weighed 220 to my 160 pounds, he was amazingly light and gentle. Very much so. Very technical. A lot of fun
That's
to
great.
train. Yeah, fun to train with. Fun.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the guys were real muscle heads, but I was back in those days, I was still able to handle some of those guys. Not so much now.
So for all the jujitsu practitioners out there listening, how to be a good jujitsu training partner? How do you be a good jujitsu training partner, Steve?
Be very sensitive to your partner. When you put a submission on, don't rip it. The second he taps, let it go. You can even ask him, "Hey, you okay? You okay?" I asked several times. And I'll go for the tap just to make sure I'm applying it right. But I'll verbally ask the person for a verbal submission before I put it on. And, I'm just very careful with the way I train. I don't train, I don't do, painful things like digging my elbows into someone's side to split their guard or, I try to move in a deliberate manner in a way that is not herky jerky, spazzy. I don't use speed. I use smoothness. Like Hickson used to say, smooth is fast.
Yeah, absolutely. In jujitsu and in weight training.
And get my timing down.
Mm-hmm.
To be a good partner, be clean. Make sure you wash your gi. Don't show up with stinky apparel. There's nothing I hate worse than someone that reeks and stinks. Brush your teeth, for goodness sake. Don't have foul breath. A lot of guys have no idea how much their breath stinks, man.
Yeah.
No, they just don't know. So be hygienic. Wash your gi regularly. Clean your clothes regularly. I know a lot of young guys, they live by themselves. They don't have wives and girlfriends to do all that stuff for them, and they show up to school with a stinky gi. At the Gracie Academy, you'd be sent home, man. No way. Of course, they have gis there that people can rent, so that's kind of nice. And the other thing is, don't always think about winning. Think about perfecting your techniques and your skills. You don't have to win. If you're better than the guy in the bottom, put yourself on the bottom. Work your weak positions. Like start from the back with the hooks in. Start from the back with the half a choke in. Start from the mount. Start cross side, with the guy on top of you. Practice your defensive skills. And that's a good thing for old guys anyway. It gets to the point where you're on the bottom anyway. So I just lay down for a lot of my white and blue belts, and, they're like puppies. Just and I just, Elliot Gracie was a great example of that kind of training. Even in his 90s, he was still playing that game. I'm just laying down, playing defense.
You've had the real honor to train with a lot of high-level quality coaches. What makes a good coach? When someone's looking to train with someone, what should they look for in their coach?
Well, someone that's kind and someone that's really looking out for their best interest. Not just in it for the money, or not a coach that just only caters to the best guys in the room. A lot of times coaches get frustrated with beginners that aren't very talented or maybe not so coordinated, and they spend all their time addressing like the best dudes in the room and just kind of neglect, people that are just starting out. And a good teacher should be able to get even the worst most uncoordinated person able to do the techniques and the moves at some point. It's really important. I think it's also important to keep like white belt classes separate from the more advanced classes. I do. I think the white belts need their own basic class. However, I would encourage any rank to occasionally go to a basic class just to go back there and just get it down. I think takedowns and throws are really important and totally neglected. Being a college wrestler, you know, I always love takedowns. And I think it's important to know all of the basic Japanese judo throws and your classic wrestling takedowns. I think you learn that. I think it's really important to practice and teach your students how to defend against a club, a baseball bat, pistols, knives. I'm a little leery of the knife defenses. I haven't seen a knife defense from any martial art I really trust, you know. Just so easy to get in trouble with a knife. I do practice classic defenses, but I can't say I'd have real confidence in it. So I don't, you know, if I couldn't run or escape or get like a longer handled weapon, then and only then would I ever confront a guy with a knife. The pistol is fairly easy to take, but see, people don't know this stuff, and a good coach teaches the whole curriculum.
Self-defense is key in your training. Jiu-jitsu self-defense is, you're really big on that, and that should be a
part. Yeah, I mean, that's what jiu-jitsu was for. Now, listen, I do respect guys that only want to learn the sport. They don't care about it. They just like to play the game of jiu-jitsu, like a chess match. That's fine. But I think everyone owes it to themselves to at least have a rudimentary knowledge of the self-defense. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And once one has mastered all the base levels and are now a black belt, what should be the focus of a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt? I've said that is the beginning of the journey.
Well, it is like the beginning, because now you got to perfect all these techniques you worked so long for. You know, and you can get really rusty. For example, I kind of embarrassed myself today. I had a young couple over today. I hadn't practiced stick defense in a long time. I felt really on my left foot. I was so rusty, really rusty. And it was like, dang, man, I need to get the sticks out and practice fending off a stick. You know?
Yeah. And
the one girl I was teaching was kind of spastic, and she poked me pretty hard right in the stomach, you know? Here I am, the black belt teacher, and she gave me a pretty good shot with that stick. And you know, my timing was just off, my precision was off, you know? And she was kind of herky jerky. But it just goes to show you, you can never stop practicing. Use it or lose it. So you better believe I'm gonna bone up on some of those defenses that I've neglected for a while.
And I've been seeing that you've been training with the cane. Tell me about that, Steve.
Well,
where did that come from?
Well, I live in a town called Port Townsend on the Olympic Peninsula on the very tip, and we're pretty far north in America. I don't know whether it's the furthest point north, but it's pretty far. And just over is Victoria Island in British Columbia, so we're right on the edge of Puget Sound. And the average age of the people in this community is 55. So it's an elderly community, and there's a lot of old busted up people. Some people need the canes for mobility, and a lot of them just want to feel empowered. Now, don't get me wrong. It's pretty useless teaching someone that can't even get up and down off the floor how to defend themselves, but I make them feel better about themselves. And I slip in some fitness stuff and some movement therapy along with the cane. You know, I had to teach the class how to get up and down off the floor, basically standing up in base, like in jiu-jitsu. But they had to use two hands instead of one hand. And, you know, just to enable them to move a little bit better. And we fit in a little bit of cross crawl patterning, and, you know, a lot of cane strikes are like a figure eight pattern. And that's really good for the brain, figure eights. So good for them to learn these new skills and techniques. I have a big dummy where they can, you know, smack Bob. It's like
Yeah,
one of
that
the
Bob.
Bob. Yeah, but it's Bob with 2 legs.
Yeah,
and
where do
two
you get that from? It looks great.
I got it off Amazon.
Okay, yeah, it's a really great one.
Yeah, it's a good one, man. It's really good because you can wax the legs, you can, you know,
Kick
wax
it.
the head, you can kick it, you can knee it. I bought 2. There's one in my garage, and there's one at the jiu-jitsu school where I go.
Yeah.
And the owner put a big gi on it, so I was practicing foot sweeps and Ushikomi fit-in throws for judo. With
Yeah.
You can't throw this.
Mm-hmm.
The base is too heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not really conditioned for throwing. But
Yeah.
you can certainly do fit-ins with it, arm drags, you know, all sorts, high crotch singles, all sorts of stuff with this bag. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Duck hunters.
Mm-hmm. So what brought the thing that brought you to Port Townsend was your spiritual mentor, Robert Koch. He told you, he predicted this pandemic. Robert Koch from starcenter.com.
Yeah,
and he
Koch. T,
Koch.
T.
Yeah.
Koch. Capital
Koch.
T, and then Koch. And it's pronounced Koch. It's a
Koch.
Russian name. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Koch.
So he told you to get off the road in 2020, settle down, ideally in the United States. What are some updates? Have you talked to Robert since then? What is in store for the future in the stars? Was he like, do you still, how often do you connect with him?
Well,
What's next?
Teresa's mother and father were living here.
Yeah.
This was like their dream home, their retirement home. They built a beautiful house, custom made on a 5-acre property. So it's big wooded plot, like a little nature preserve. I mean, I got a herd of deer out there any given time during the day. Probably not unlike Winnipeg, you know. Deer wander around the place. You guys have moose probably that come in.
No moose here.
No,
they're more up north.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we have like little raccoons and the Douglas squirrel and just all sorts of really cool, fun little animals. And I love it. There's been some mountain lion sightings recently. We get packs of coyotes coming through here all the time, bobcats, fox, lynx. So it's really cool that way. I just saw a bald eagle on top of my tree this morning. I tell my little squirrel friends, go hide, go hide. So Teresa's dad died, leaving her 83-year-old mother by herself in this giant house out here in the country. So she wanted to be close to her mother.
Yeah.
So I bought a tiny house and set it up because I want to have my own space and I don't want to be beholden to anyone. So my tiny house is kind of like an RV. It's on wheels. Yeah. So I can tow it anywhere. And I set it up, hooked it up to the septic tank. We put in a special electrical line from the house with the electrician. And then I just hooked up to a garden, a special RV hose to an outside. And during the winter, I put a heated hose on that keeps the hose from freezing. And luckily, it doesn't get that cold here during the winter. It rarely drops below freezing. Even all in February, even you might get a little freezing at night, but rarely does it go below freezing. So, but it's not the ideal place for them. The ideal place is somewhere in the East Coast, U.S. Okay. So when do you think the next move will be? Or I hate to say it, but probably when Teresa's mom passed. Okay. So not that I'm looking forward to it. It sounds kind of gory, but I just realized that I'm supposed to bide my time until it's time for the next move. And I do believe I'm going to move into the Charleston area of South Carolina, which I love. I love it. So going back to Robert Koch, has he given you any other predictions? What, is there any predictions that have you still connect with Robert? I haven't talked to him for a while. Things were pretty sedate here. I was contacting him a lot when I was traveling. I wanted to get the timing for trips, airline trips, timing seminars. He was really good at helping me pick the best time. Yeah. But since I'm not doing any of those things anymore, we only contact him when I'm going to do like a webinar or online course, for timing.
Okay.
But basically my days are pretty simple here, I
Mhm,
pretty much
mhm.
get up early in the morning. I go through a whole health regimen. I do a yin yoga routine while I'm in bed still.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah.
down and I do online Zoom uh, sessions with my clients, answer my online personal training questions. I have people that subscribe to my online training services.
Yeah.
Uh, that pretty much takes up my day. And then I'll go and I teach a couple game classes at a local
Yeah.
school. I'll go in and I'll roll with the local guy here that runs the school.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to run the school. I didn't want, I'm done with all that. But I have mats in my garage. And I have guys come over to the house for a private lesson. And
Yeah.
I have I set up some equipment for strength training. And I have a 10 by 15 foot mat area, which is pretty nice little area.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Fills the front part of the garage. So, we could have like 4 people rolling at the same time. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about is just like how Robert Koch, Joe Rogan was not a fan of talking about that. He was not a fan of talking about this next topic, which I am a fan and want to hear more about. And that is the energetic body, our aura, our inner light. So how do you, Steve, work on your inner light?
Well, it's funny that Joe was so down on all that kind of stuff because I know he's a pretty conscious person in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think he started taking on this whole idea of being like a debunker.
Yeah.
He got kind of trashed himself with that bulletproof coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of embarrassed with that. It was pretty embarrassing because, how do you speak about spiritual truths? You either get it or you don't,
Yeah.
And astrology is one of those things that let's put it this way. This guy's always been right on for me. And I have no reason to doubt him. He's not trying to take my finances. He's not trying to take my savings. He's not dunning me for money. He was just telling me what he saw in the charts. And he himself said, I am not infallible. And the charts are never wrong, but the interpretation of the chart can be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone can do an astrological chart and look at all the different points. But where they go wrong is sometimes the interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And he often told me, look, if I'm wrong or I get something wrong, I want to know about it so I can fix it, so I can get that much better. So it's pretty open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, I've never had a bad seminar. You would think out of all the seminars I've done, one of them would have bombed. There were some that weren't as good as others, but they're always right on because of my timing. My timing, and the timing was because of Robert.
Yeah.
Not
and you're
in 15 years, more than that, 17 years. Not one bad seminar. Not one. Never one where someone says, that sucked, I want my money back. Never once.
Mm-hmm. And what about your energetic body? How do you cultivate your inner light? That's like a different subject than the Robert Koch. So the energetic body. So what have you learned about the energetic body, our aura, and the inner light? And what do you do today to cultivate that?
Well, it's nothing magical. Almost every major religion has talked about it,
Mm-hmm.
The yogis talk about like the layers of the aura. You can look it up if you want. They tried to debunk the aura as, like some kind of, physical phenomenon, I personally have felt people's energy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you an example. We've all experienced this, right?
Yo, definitely.
You're in a room and someone comes in and you just feel the mood drop.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you just feel like everyone's kind of down because the person's like really negative, like a negative energy. You feel, you sense it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're really, really in tune, you can even see it with the side of your eye, the rods and cones. But there's also been the other experience. where you'll meet someone, or maybe you'll be in a room of people and someone will come in and everyone's uplifted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whoa, you feel good around this person.
Yeah.
What is that? Well, that's that phenomenon, that energy body. It can be
Mm-hmm.
negative, positive. Negative meaning that they're just thinking low thoughts.
Yeah.
That brings energy down. And positive, they're thinking goodness and they're full of love and compassion. You can feel that, man. You feel that when you meet people for the first
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
You develop almost an instant, split second like or dislike.
Yeah.
First impression. That's that energy that the person is projecting and putting off.
Mm-hmm.
So to say it doesn't exist, it's not true, man. It definitely
Mm-hmm.
exists. Everyone's experienced it at one level or another. But as you become more conscious of it, you start to be able to almost see it and feel it. There's
Mm-hmm.
light being, For me, every morning, I breathe from my sacrum up. I bring the energy up my spine to the crown chakra, called rousing the citadels. So as I'm breathing up my spine, I see like little lights each chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bring the energy down to the root chakra again, like a
Mm-hmm.
circle.
Mm-hmm.
I do it 7 times. And you can even feel it tingling as the breath is traveling up the spine. I feel like little tingles. And then it goes back down. Like little hairs raising on the back of your neck, like that. It's hard to describe. But I'll do that 7 times. It's part of a ritual, bringing that energy up. And then I'll see a crystal of light in my heart.
Yeah.
And the heart is the symbol of love energy, and its color is green. And I see this crystal growing, and I'll say, affirmations, like positive affirmations.
Yeah.
Like the crystal of love is growing in my heart and expands out into every fiber of my being. And I love like I've never loved before. I love, 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 love.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I'll just feel that energy radiating out and just enveloping every fiber of my being.
Mm-hmm.
And you can
Mm-hmm.
feel it. And then I'll direct healing energy to different areas of my body that have been injured or hurt or aren't working as well as they could.
Yes.
There's been research done on emotions and how negative emotions and thoughts affect your health.
Mm-hmm.
Your body actually produces peptides and all sorts of chemical reactions to negative thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it produces your hormones and everything else. So a lot of physical ailments are created through negative thinking.
Yeah.
And they can be reversed through positive thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you can't control your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Some people try thought control. No, you'll have all sorts of crazy stuff going into your mind. You have constant thoughts going in and out all day long. Some people are unaware of this process. And a lot of people are unaware of the inner conversations they're having continuously. They don't even know it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But once you become aware of it, you can deflect certain negative thoughts. And, I refuse to accept that thought.
Yeah.
Or if I'm in a negative situation, I refuse to accept this as the final solution. And it's amazing how things will just reverse. Happens to me all the time. It's like a damn near miracle, but it's not once you understand the process. I've been in situations where I've been turned down, let's say, trying to change a ticket for a flight, or trying to go someplace to have something like at a bank or something, and the teller gives me a hard time or whatever, and I'll just say in my mind, I refuse to accept this as the final solution. God's energy of love enters all.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden the person, well, wait a second. And then it'll be like a miracle. All of a sudden they'll just completely change and give me what I needed in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I practice these affirmations and prayers every single day.
Yeah.
And the first part of my day when I wake up, I'll say, today is the first day of the rest of my life. Only good comes to me. Only good comes from me. Yeah.
I'm a son of God without the powers of God. Money
Yeah.
flows to me in great avalanche of abundance.
Yeah.
Wave after wave of visible money supply comes to me now. I am able to
That's,
afford all those things that make life worth living and make life interesting.
I have an all sufficiency. My bank account is filled with an all sufficiency to meet every need. And then I'll just say other things like those that need me most and those that I need most are inexplicably drawn together because, the way it works is through our fellow man,
Mm-hmm.
fellow man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing those with us last time. And I've been using those every morning, including that first one. And then I am love, I am loving. And that other one. But I'm going to incorporate the visualization of the energy that you just shared into that love affirmation because I was missing out on that piece. And I'm going to use that visualization to strengthen my energetic body.
Well, the other thing too is express gratitude every day. Make sure that you
Mhm.
pick a whole bunch of stuff you're grateful for.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
one of my part of my health regimen is I take a 5-gallon bucket of water.
Mhm.
Do you guys use liters or gallons in Canada?
Liters.
I don't know what a gallon is. What is it? 5 liters, I think.
I think so. 4 point something liters. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So 5 gallons is a lot of liters. It's a pretty big
Yeah.
bucket. Anyway,
Yeah.
I do an ice cold bucket. I pour it over myself. It's a Russian health. It's part of the Russian Slavic health system
Yes.
called dowsing. I actually learned it from a Russian Canadian,
Okay.
Vladimir Vasiliev in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
great
You mentioned doing ice cold showers every morning. Do you ever
Yeah.
incorporate the Wim Hof breathing in that? What are your thoughts on Wim Hof and his breathing
Uh,
system?
it's really good for enduring cold water, but I don't see any reason to overexpose yourself. It's
Yeah.
pretty innovating. Everything has like a point of negative returns.
Yeah.
A point of diminishing return.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll go outside all weather. It doesn't matter. It could be really freezing cold with snow all over the ground, and I'll slowly pour a 5-gallon bucket, starting with my abdomen, my chest, my head, and down my spine.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll splash a little water on my face and my arms and my torso, just to
Mm-hmm.
kind of get me used to it a little bit. And then I
Mm-hmm.
slowly pour it, and then I just stand there, completely nude, letting the air start to draw me. And then I'll vigorously rub myself down with my hands, and then rub myself down the coarse towel. Put on a big thick robe with a hood, and then
Yeah.
I'll stand there barefoot in the grass, for that grounding,
Yeah.
getting that electromagnetic fields up through your feet, and
Yeah.
discharging any negative energy in your body. And I'll do some eye exercises.
Yeah.
One excellent Chinese eye exercise is to outline a tree in the distance. Like you just follow the branches in and out with your eyes to the top, and then back the other way. And then I'll shut my eyes and I'll think of 10 things I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you do it is, I am grateful for my tiny house. And then you have to tell why. Because
Yeah.
it allows me to live rich and free like I'm meant to be. And then you
Yeah.
always end, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm
Yes.
grateful for Diana Blasey for allowing me to live here on her beautiful property because I can, I'm trying to think of some of the things I say. And it's always a gratitude toward her mom for allowing us to stay here because I can live rent
Yes.
because I live rent free. It allows me to save my money. It
And
gives me a
thank
safe
you.
harbor. Thank you,
Thank
thank
you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you turned me on to that. Rhonda Byrne, The Magic. You gave so
you.
many
Yeah,
great book recommendations last time. You gave Yogananda, Louise Hay, Eckhart Tolle, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, Ernest Holmes in His Science of Mind, U.S. Anderson, Eddie Baker Eady, John Randolph Price, Never Galdered. And I've dove
Florence
deep
Shen. Add Florence Shen. She's good.
for The Complete Works. That's one of my favorite books. And like
And
these are all books that I've dived in because of you. Any other recommendations, Steve?
Thomas Trower, the Edinburgh lectures. It's a
Okay.
collection. You can get it off Amazon. Download it on your iPhone.
Thomas Troward.
Yeah, Troward.
Yeah, thank you so much for those book recommendations. And all the wisdoms you shared last year, all the wisdom you shared last year, and on today's episode. We closed last episode by you giving your number one lesson. And that number one lesson that you learned on your path last year was the power of spoken word. Say what you mean what you say, watch what you say.
Yes. Because, you know, words become, they're like things, you know, they actually produce the environment that you're in. You know, you can't control your thoughts, but you can control your words. And if you start to put negativity out there, you're going to attract just likewise. That's why it's really important to avoid condemning anyone or judging anyone or bad-mouthing anyone, you know. And, you know, we're all guilty of that sometimes, but it always comes back to bite you because that negative energy travels out and comes back tenfold if you're not careful. So I used to be kind of a critical kind of person because I was very self-critical, and that would manifest in being critical of others. I've really, really curtailed all that criticism of other people. I'll never bash anyone, especially on any kind of public forum or, you know, public discourse. You know, it's not good to bash people or put people down or be negative about people. I can disagree with people. I can disagree maybe with exercise protocols. You know, I can point out some weaknesses in it, but that's not the same thing as bashing them as a person.
So be impeccable with your word. Be impeccable with your word. So just to be responsible for your time, I really appreciate this conversation. Do you have any last closing words as wisdom you'd like to offer our listeners today?
I'm going to share a little exercise with you that you can do anytime, especially if you're about to face a difficult situation or if you're fearful. It's called the Tower of Light Ritual. And what you do is you close your eyes and you imagine a bright light in your heart expanding outward and filling your body with a wonderful light. And then the light starts to emanate from every cell of your body. And you begin to surround yourself with a light bubble. And then the light turns blue, which is protective. And you're like in this beautiful little egg-shaped bubble, like a foot or two above your head, a foot or two out around your body, and even under your feet under the ground. And you're completely surrounded with this beautiful protective bubble of light that emanated from your heart. And then you see above you like a little ball of light about the size of a softball, and it's sparkling like a 4th of July sparkler. And you see it radiate a cone of light over your little blue bubble. And as it radiates down, you're inside this little protective cone of light. And that is like the little light coming down on you is like your higher self that's not even part of your body. So you have your inner light and your outer light all shining together and surrounding you with this huge shield of pure light. Blue bubble surrounded by a cone with this beautiful star above your head, like the size of a softball. I always visualize a sparkler. And you hold that image as long as you can in your mind. And you feel a tremendous peace. And you feel protected. And you feel extremely strong. And you can go into any situation feeling fortified. You know, if you're going into a fearful interview or, you know, maybe a wrestling match or something, you know, and you're scared, you just go for that inner strength, even if it's only 30 seconds. And then when you open your eyes, you'll feel completely renewed. It's called the Tower of Light.
Wow. Thank you, Steve. It's been a real honor.
Thank you.
Been a blessing. I'm grateful for this conversation with Steve Maxwell today because I am feeling uplifted, inspired, empowered, and full of life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
And I'm very grateful to you, Derek, for having me on your program so that I can get the word out there to people. So thank you. Thank you. And well, hey, you're going to have to get down to Port Townsend, man.
Yeah, I would love to.
Borders, or have me up Winnipeg, man. I've never been to Winnipeg.
Yeah, I would love to. It'd be a great honor. So anyone wanting to learn more and from Steve, they could find you at maxwellsc.com. You have so many great videos on there.
Yeah,
You've been also doing a lot of Zoom webinars, and I've had the privilege to take part in almost all of them. And
thank you.
you're brainstorming right now for the next one, and it's going to be about aging. Is what your
Yeah,
newsletter
yeah.
what your
I'm gonna
newsletter
talk about
said.
something you can do to slow it down a little bit. And of course, it's a work in progress, by
Mm-hmm.
most standards, I'm not that old yet, but
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to guys like Elio Gracie, what was he, 94, 95? His brother Carlos was 103. My own
Mm-hmm.
father was 93, and he didn't
Mm-hmm.
die of natural causes. He died in an automobile accident. So,
Mm-hmm.
who knows? Old Sam Maxwell might be still alive. But, I'm looking at what these guys did. Jack LaLanne was a hero of mine. I'm looking what he did. I go to Ikaria, or I had been going to Ikaria.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the blue zones where the oldest people in the world live. I got a chance to study up close and personal what they did. So I've
Mm-hmm.
taken a lot of the stuff. So hopefully this next webinar, I'll be able to share some of that information I've gleaned from my travels.
Yeah, and I look forward to it. And they can also find you on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Steve Maxwell SC. And I highly recommend checking you out on all those platforms. You have so much wisdom, and you have lived this advice. And you're, like you said, you're the oldest on the jiu-jitsu mats, and I want to take my advice from you rather than a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old Instagram star. Like, they will not be lasting. They will not be lasting.
Probably not, but you never know. Let's wish them all luck.
Yeah, maybe if they attend your webinars and listen to your stuff,
Yeah,
maybe they have some hope. Maybe they have some hope.
We'll see you soon, Derek.
Yeah, thank you. Much appreciation, Steve.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.